Number 15. Sunken Spanish Fleet. In 1712, Spain was low on cash, so they set out to gather funds from their New World colonies. In 1715, a fleet of 11 Spanish ships, topped off with gold, silver, pearls, and emeralds, were on their way from Cuba to Spain during hurricane season, unknowingly to their own detriment. The entire fleet sunk into the ocean, along with a fleet full of Spanish sailors. Although the Treasure Coast in Florida sees a lot of old recovered shipwrecks and long-lost treasure wash up on shore, including gold valued at $300,000, discovered by a family just 150 yards offshore not too long ago. Only 7 of the 11 ships of the ill-fated fleet were ever found, carrying an estimated $2 billion worth of treasure. The San Miguel was a lighter ship, so the storm could have pulled it north. Other than that, there are no clues as to where the 3 other ships may have ended up, but treasure seekers are bound and determined to find it. Number 14. Rocky Mountain Gold. Imagine venturing into the Rocky Mountains to find a buried treasure chest full of gold and valuable gems. Forrest Fenn, an 85-year-old adventurer and millionaire, wanted his fellow adventure seekers to imagine just that as he delivered the task of searching for the elaborately decorated 40-pound 10x10 treasure chest that he topped up with gold coins and nuggets, along with precious gems, including sapphires, rubies, diamonds, and emeralds. He wrote his self-published book, The Thrill of the Chase. In it, he dropped clues as to where in the Rocky Mountains, at an elevation of 5,000 feet, between Santa Fe and Canada, this treasure was buried. Fenn didn't reveal anything more than that, or more than what he shared in his book. He said, "No one knows where that treasure chest is but me. If I pass tomorrow, the knowledge of that location goes in the coffin with me." Clues to its location are suggested in the book's poem. One stanza of the poem directs adventure seekers to begin it where warm waters halt, leading many to disagree straight off the mark as to where the starting point of this treasure map begins. Next, treasure seekers are supposed to follow this warm water down a canyon a distance that is too far to walk, and which would put them below the House of Brown. Who is Brown? Nobody knows. Out of the tens of thousands of adventure seekers that have searched for Fenn's treasure since the poem was published, no one has found Fenn's hidden treasure, which stands to be valued at more than $1 million. Number 13. Dead Sea Scroll Treasure Map. Not everything that glitters is gold. Sometimes things that don't glitter at all are more valuable. The Dead Sea Scrolls are one of these things. They are a valuable historical document when it comes to linguistics, religion, and yes, gold. The 2,000-year-old record shows a treasure map, the treasure of which has an estimated value of a whopping $1.2 billion. The first scrolls were discovered by civilians in Israel, and 6 years later, archaeologists uncovered more. The oxidized copper scroll that they happened upon was split in two and appeared to be a treasure map, noting 64 Israeli hotspots of silver and gold. 2 examples read, Item 3, in the funeral shrine, in the third row of stones, 100 gold ingots, and Item 5, in the ascent of the staircase of refuge. To the left-hand side, 3 cubits up from the floor, are 40 talents of silver. The problem is there are millions of staircases and funeral shrines in Israel, and these instructions date back to the 4th century BC, so unless hunters are willing to check every funeral shrine and staircase there is, there's no knowing where this treasure may be hidden, if at all. Another reason treasure hunters may want to skip this hunt is because some of the ancient Hebrew used on the scrolls is unknown to today's linguists. Greek words also make an appearance on occasion. For this reason, the entire document is yet to be correctly translated and is pretty spotty as is. Needless to say, this would be one of the toughest treasure maps to follow. Number 12. The Thomas Beale Cipher. back to the Rocky Mountains, but this time, we're going all the way back to 1816 when Thomas Beale and his companions came upon jewels, silver, and gold valued at $63 million hidden in the Rockies. They wanted to make sure that they get off the mountain alive and back safely home to their families, but they also wanted their families to inherit the treasure they just discovered, so they hid much of the treasure, and Beale drew up 3 ciphers, the first of which pointed to the treasure's location, the second of which shared the treasure's contents, and the third of which named their next of kin. Beale handed off these ciphers to Robert Morris, an innkeeper in Virginia. He instructed him to open the box if and only if Beale failed to come back to the inn within 10 years' time. Beale claimed a key would be delivered to Morris to open the box on the 10th anniversary. Beale disappeared and no key was delivered. However, the box was opened, and numerous treasure hunters have taken a stab at decoding the Beale cipher and finding the location of this buried treasure, but it has yet to be found. Number 11. The Treasure of Lima. The Spanish have had very little luck with treasure in this list. In 1820, they were double-crossed by British captain William Thompson, who left with some of the Incan treasure that they were storing in Lima up to that point. At the time, there was a revolt which caused them to flee the city and take whatever bit of treasure they could. They trusted Captain Thompson and his crew on the ship, the Mary Deer, with some of this treasure. He was supposed to just sail around Lima with it until the revolt was over. Instead, he and his crew ended the lives of the Spanish guards and took off with it, burying the loot somewhere on the Cocos Island, supposedly. We know this because the Mary Deer was recaptured, and apart from Thompson and his first mate, the whole crew lost their lives. The 2 were spared because they said they'd take the Spaniards to the treasure's hiding place, but when they arrived at Cocos Island, the 2 managed to flee into the jungle. The actual location of their treasure gone with them. No one knows if Cocos Island is even where Thompson and his crew stowed the treasure. They could have just been throwing the Spaniards off the scent. Whatever the case, the official claim is that the treasure includes 200 chests of jewels, a solid gold bejeweled statue of the Virgin Mary, 113 other gold religious icons, 273 jewel-hilted swords, chalices, gold crowns, diamonds, and loads of silver and gold bars. The total worth is valued around $200 million. All of this up for grabs for those treasure hunters intrepid enough to find it. Number 10. Colonel John Singleton Mosby's lost loot. On March 9, 1863, Confederate Colonel John Singleton Mosby, an infamous guerrilla fighter, and his Partisan Rangers made their way into Fairfax Courthouse and raided Union soldiers, capturing 42 of them without firing off one round. He also pillaged Union General Edwin H. Stockton's headquarters, which included a burlap sack of family heirlooms, coins, jewelry, candlesticks, and the like that had been taken by Stockton and his crew from the homes of wealthy Virginian planters. Laden down with these family heirlooms, which may be valued at $350,000, Mosby and his Rangers were taking off when they were met with a second big group of Union soldiers to the west of Haymarket. In order that the Union soldiers didn't get their hands on this newfound treasure, he and a sergeant he trusted buried it somewhere in the Fairfax woods between 2 pine trees. They marked the buried treasure with an X in order to come back later and recapture it, but it hasn't seen the light of day since. He did try to recapture the buried treasure a few months later, when he deemed it safe to send the trusted sergeant and 6 men to retrieve it, but they never reached the place. Union troops captured and hanged them. Once Mosby too passed, no one else knew the location of the buried heirlooms, so they're still available for hunting by the treasure hunters of today. Number 9. The Oak Island Treasure. The Money Pit of Oak Island, just off Nova Scotia, is a centuries-old legend that treasure hunters have been in search of since it was first reported by a teenager called Daniel McGuinness. In 1795, McGuinness said that he'd seen strange lights on the island. When he went to investigate, he happened upon a small hole ripe for digging. Privacy was the thing of the day, so he and his friends thought that perhaps this hole was full of buried treasure. During their dig, they noticed that wooden platforms and signs of pickaxing indicated that the hole was, in fact, made by man. Still, they never did find any buried treasure there. Despite this, treasure hunters whispered the legend throughout the centuries that followed, and they continued to travel to Oak Island to excavate the alleged buried treasure. They kept coming across odd findings that egged them on, like non-native coconut shells, and at 90 feet down, a stone with strange symbols carved into it, which has yet to be decoded. The Money Pit is truly a money pit, as millions of dollars have been spent by treasure hunting companies trying to find something that may not even be there. 6 lives were also lost in the various excavations, and water now floods the pit as it's been dug so deep, now requiring expensive machines to drain the flood. Still, claims have been made of gold findings, which continue to haunt these craziest of treasure hunters into continuing the dig. Treasure hunters as famous as Franklin D. Roosevelt have been driven to this pit to uncover the legend. Roosevelt in his late 20s worked on the site, and years later, people are still searching, so much so that the History Channel now airs a Treasure Seekers of Oak Island reality show. Hopefully, someone finds the treasure soon before everyone goes insane. Number 8. The Lost Dutchman Gold Mine. If you're superstitious, this treasure hunt is for you. Deep in the Superstition Mountains, Jacob Waltz, an immigrant, came across a bounty of gold, which some say he was told of by his mistress, who was an Apache. Despite the name of the gold mine, Waltz was German, not Dutch, and the Apaches ran him out of the tribe. He always returned to steal the riches within, that is, until he developed pneumonia and passed away one spring. The only person who knew about Waltz's gold mine was his caretaker during his final days, Julia Thomas. He gave her clues to the mine's location, but with these clues, it still has yet to be found. The clues: you must crawl through a hole to arrive at the mine, and the sun sets on the gold inside it. The mine is near enough to the old military trail that you can see the trail from the mine, but not the other way around. You can also see Weaver's Needle, and perhaps the most mysterious clue, a face looks up at the mine. The Superstition Mountains are thought to be the location, but naturally the mountains are cursed, so those who trot off looking for gold there, beware. You may also end up in the hole to the lower world, an Apache legend. It may be better not to try your luck. Number 7. The Golden Owl. This entry also comes from a book entitled On the Trail of the Golden Owl. The book is described by Wikipedia as a French armchair treasure hunt book. The Golden Owl was published in 1993, written by Regis Hauser via the pseudonym Max Valentine, and illustrated by artist Michael Becker. Becker also designed an actual statuette of the owl, which Valentine hid, and the book offers clues to the treasure's location. Valued at around 150,000 euros, the true statuette is made of silver and gold, with diamond insets, and weighing 33 pounds, with the dimensions of 10 inches by 20 inches. The statue is held by a legal protector, whereas the statuette that is actually hidden in France is a replica made of bronze, for which the treasure hunt was launched on May 15, 1993. Valentine expected the hunt to last no more than a year, but 23 years later, and the hunt's final zone has yet to be identified, leaving this buried treasure still buried. It's no wonder that the owl remains hidden, as Valentine spent 450 hours in the late 70s coming up with 11 riddles, which he later incorporated into his book. The treasure is somewhere in France, and that's all anyone knows for sure based on the clues. Number 6. The Amber Room. Some treasure hunters look for ships Some look for mines, and some look for long-lost rooms belonging to Russian czars. Peter the Great was given a room with walls made of amber and gold leaf as a gift by the Prussian king, Frederick William, in 1716. You know, as sometimes you are given for your birthday. Some people call the room the eighth wonder of the world. It was so nicely decorated and crafted, and is now valued at more than $250 million. Then in 1941, German soldiers seized Peter the Great's old stomping grounds and took the panels straight off the walls. The eighth wonder of the world was taken apart, and the Amber Room was never seen again. Some researchers believe the panels were destroyed when the Soviets took Kaliningrad, but others think that before the city was seized, the panels were shipped off under cover of darkness and are safely stored somewhere. As recently as last year, German researchers and treasure hunters think they found the storage bin after 70 years of searching and are seeking funding to excavate. Clues from KGB and the Stasi reporters led them to a hidden tunnel network in Prince's Cave in the East German Ore Mountains. They used radar and discovered something that appears to be a booby trap, and evidence of a blast was discovered at the mouth of the tunnel, in which eyewitness accounts of shipping crates had been hidden. We want to go on, but it's all very complicated and we need a sponsor. One of the treasure hunters, Leonard Bloom, said, but that might be hard to find, seeing as both the Russian and East German secret police searched fruitlessly for it, and many believed it was either destroyed by the Soviets or in an air raid. These treasure hunters may also be wrong about the location, so the Amber Room is still up for grabs. Number 5. Little Bighorn Treasure. In 1876, when Lieutenant Colonel George Custer was battling the Cheyenne and Lakota tribes, Captain Grant Marsh was on his way with reinforcements, piloting the Far West, a steamboat that ran up the Yellowstone and Missouri rivers. Not only did he return 51 injured troopers after Custer's defeat at the Battle of the Little Bighorn to safety, but he was also the first to report the defeat to the rest of the nation. He also set a steamboat record, covering 710 river miles in just 54 hours. As he shuttled the wounded on his steamboat, the load was too heavy with all the extra bodies on board. Unfortunately, he had to unload some of his cargo, including the gold bars he was storing for miners, who were afraid they'd be pillaged by the Sioux natives, which were valued at $375,000. Apparently, he thought the troopers' lives were more valuable than gold. He hid this loot at some point along the Bighorn River, a stash that remains hidden to this day. Number 4. The Sad Night Treasure. Buried beneath Mexico City is a legendary treasure that has yet to be uncovered. On La Noche Triste, or the Sad Night, in June of 1520, Hernan Cortez and his fellow Spanish conquistadors wore out their welcome with the Aztecs, and they were driven out of the Aztec capital by the indigenous warriors. As they were fleeing, however, Cortez told his army to pillage as much Aztec gold and treasure as they could squeeze into their armory. They followed Cortez's orders, but it was to their own detriment. This is due to the fact that the Aztec capital was an island in the center of a lake, and the fact that now they were weighed down by 6 tons of treasure. The fleeing conquistadors were an easier target for the Aztecs in this way, who threw them off of bridges where they sank into the depths of the lake all around, dragged to the bottom of the sea by their own greed. This legendary treasure is said to still be buried in the now dried up land near the former Aztec capital, just waiting for treasure hunters to find it. But Mexico City rests atop the ancient Aztec civilization, so the ground is unlikely to be torn up and excavated anytime soon. Number 3. King John's Treasure. Friends, guards, and fans of King John the Bad were some lucky folks. Bad old John would often take gold plates, coins, and jewelry for those who followed him. However, in 1216, his thievery was about to catch up with him. This is when he went to Norfolk's Bishop's Lynn, also known as the Wash, as it's full of mud flats and marshes, making it treacherous to cross. He became sick with dysentery while in Bishop's Lynn, so he took a calmer route around the Wash, but his carts and soldiers went on through the marshes. In one of the carts was his grandmother, the Empress of Germany's crown jewels. It is said that near Sutton Bridge, the soldiers were overcome by the tide and passed away. All of King John's treasure and possessions went down with them. Just a few days after that, King John passed away. His treasure, we assume, is still at the bottom of those marshes, ready and waiting for any hunter brave enough to battle through the Wash. Number 2. Treasure of Knights Templar. All great stories of treasure start with warrior monks. A religious order of warrior monks, known as the Knights Templar, came together in 1114 AD. They led the Crusaders and intended to retake the Holy Land, but being quite greedy, they pillaged every bit of land they conquered, taking riches and power at once. Luckily, the Pope had his eye on them, and just a short 2 centuries after they were founded, he arrested the Knights Templar for hearsay. Some did evade capture, taking their riches with them, and are said to have hidden in Scotland along with their treasures. Supposedly, they hid these treasures under a chapel, and their descendants shot off to Nova Scotia. Did their grandpa's treasure leave with them? Some think so. Some even suggest that the money pit on Oak Island may be where this treasure is hidden. It could also be back in Scotland under any number of chapels, or anywhere else a Knights Templar may have fled. As with many of these buried treasures, we'll likely never know. Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills and I hope you're enjoying my narration. If you're curious about what I look like in real life, then go to my Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT and tap that follow button to find out. I'm currently doing a super poll on my Instagram. If you believe ghosts are real, then go to my most recent photo and tap the like button. If you don't, DM me saying why. When you're done, come right back to this video to find out the number 1 entry. Also, follow me on Twitter at YTChills because that's where I post video updates. It's a proven fact that generosity makes you a happier person, so if you're generous enough to hit that subscribe button and the bell beside it, then thank you. This way you'll be notified of the new videos we upload every Tuesday and Saturday. Number 1. El Dorado. Gold has been valued across civilizations and across centuries, that it's no wonder that folklore about a city of gold grew out of this gold lust. It was more than folklore to some. 16th and 17th century Europeans thought that the city actually existed in the New World, and it was called El Dorado, i.e. the Gilded One. Many have gone in search of El Dorado, and many continue to. The city of gold has yet to be found, and, according to folklorist Jim Griffith, its location often changes, and this is exactly what has led to its legendary status of today. El Dorado shifted geographical locations until finally it simply meant a source of untold riches somewhere in the Americas, he said. Still, the legend of El Dorado originated in South America and has some truth to it. 16th century Spanish explorers were told about a native tribe who lived in the Andes and whose new chieftain would be covered in gold dust during his commencement ceremony, and Lake Guatavita would be filled with jewels and gold sacrificed to the water god. The Spanish called this chief El Dorado, and though the tribe was defeated, European explorers went in search of a city of gold and treasure that they believed must lie somewhere within the mysterious continent. They did eventually discover some treasure and gold pieces in that same lake, but if there were more riches in the deeper water, they didn't uncover them. Everyone wished for El Dorado to be true, but no one has ever found it. Thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to subscribe because we upload new countdowns every Tuesday and Saturday. Or if you're still not convinced, here are some of our other videos that I think you'd like. Enjoy!